most markets of the world, even developed countries like the U.S. So that's an area we're really going to focus on in terms of trying to figure out how to have a proper platform and content and services for younger kids. And then the Connect part is, our device is a multi-function box. So we offer a browser. So for people that can't afford a laptop or a PC or don't have broadband internet, wired connection, we go over a 3G network. So we were here in India about a little over a year ago, and actually Prakash, Nitish, and Vishal, and several others, and I think we were too early because at the point where the 3G licenses, there was, folks thought they were going to roll out in India before China, and they kind of flip-flopped.
I still remember meeting you and giving you a hard time.
Yeah. So our device is based on a 3G network. So it's similar in some respects to what Vishal's doing his games on demand, Nitish as well. But we're going to use a wireless network as our kind of
that's awesome
instead of wired connection.
I think the education angle is the most interesting angle, and I will share an anecdote that will perhaps be interesting for you to hear. So in my role as the chair for the NASCOM Gaming Forum, we've gone and represented with the Ministry of Information Broadcasting many times to request them to, recognize that we are a fledgling industry that is growing and to see how they can help us in different ways. And there was one of those meetings where I said, I'm going to take a totally different tack. And I said, gaming is really good for education. And I saw that the mood really changed. They started listening. And then I realized that the preconceived notion with parents is that gaming is bad because it is distracting them from studies, it is taking them away from getting good marks and from getting ranks and from getting into engineering colleges, whatever. But the minute we position that there is a huge potential for gaming and interactive content for education to enliven education, then she said, oh really? I thought it was just guns and gore and blood and gore, and it was the principal secretary was a lady there who has kids.
Yeah. So
it's an angle I think which has been just waiting to be taken in India.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you talk about it.
Yeah, from our perspective, what's a big opportunity for India from my perspective is that the gaming culture is not fully evolved yet or fully established yet. And from our perspective, it runs counter to. I came originally out of the game business. It runs counter to historically what's happened, but I don't necessarily think the business here or in some of the other markets we're going after has evolved the way the traditional game industry has evolved. So, there's a lot of discussion about people use terms like the gamification of everything. So we believe in that. So it's more. Can you apply game mechanics to education, learning in some way?
Absolutely.
And since it's not fully established here, to some extent you could say it's a spin, but all we're really saying is instead of saying, well, we do games.
Yeah.
We're doing learning, and then at the end of the day, it has gameplay mechanics in it. That's what we're doing to try and position it.
So to add to that anecdote, I was speaking about this at another forum, and I was told, oh, it's just a spin. Do you have any proof for what you're saying? And luckily I had my laptop with me. And 10 years back, maybe more, 1999 or maybe 2000, my company had made streaming broadband content for the Singapore government. And it was for schools. And they were modules that we'd made explaining concepts of pressure, density, stuff like that. So I whipped my laptop out and I started showing, and it was mostly point and click, but it was interactive way of teaching. And they were saying, oh, okay, there's a lot of potential for this. And I started describing how the learnings and the amount of time that is being spent by the kid in each screen can actually be transmitted back to a central server where they can analyze who's struggling with something and who's. So there's a tremendous amount of potential. So what's your take on pricing, content pricing, box pricing? Do you have anything worked out yet? Or?
Yeah, no, we're still working on. We're in discussion with a couple partners. We hope to identify one if it happens by the end of this year. So we'll announce that. We think it's got to be 4,000 or less.
Right.
To even start. To even enter it. I think there's value. We don't necessarily believe $20 US. Everything half would be, you say it's $50, you know, it's going to be $25, because we think education is viewed a little differently by parents. So, you know, ultimately, I think the bigger goal is if we can position it properly and launch the product and service properly, we hope parents don't look at it as a frivolous expense. It's more like, you know, I put food on the table, I have shelter, I have utilities, you know, whether that's water or electricity, and education and learning is one of those. So if we you know, that kind of goes in line in terms of we believe in probably a subscription model, some form of subscription model as well.
Is there a potential for you to work with the existing cable operators, DTH providers, and install your technology onto their set-top boxes? Because that would be a killer app.
Yeah, so we interestingly enough, about a year ago, we did have a lot of discussions with DTH manufacturers and, you know, the Bartons of the world, things like that. India is a different, I think conceptually the answer is yes, but India is a little different because, you know, the cost of the DTH boxes themselves are just being destroyed in terms of going all the way down. They don't want to spend another dime on CapEx to everything else. But in other markets, it's different. So in China, we actually recently announced a partnership with a company there. It's a China Beijing Digital. They're a set-top box manufacturer. So there, the government actually is involved. So they have a mandate to put 250 million set-top boxes into homes.
Wow.
So we're kind of riding behind that. And the idea there is we use cell phone technology, so the size of the actual printed circuit board of the technology is no bigger than a standard phone, but it's put inside of a box to kind of look like a set-top box. But there we can actually integrate, you know, the discussion is, can we integrate into another set-top box or something, to a television set or something else? And then, you know, we get out of the business of providing a physical product. It's more like delivering that service.
So it sounds like there's a lot of content development opportunity for your platform for Indian companies as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think like Atin and everyone else here, you know, we believe in the local ecosystem as well. Like in Brazil, Mexico, you know, we have a bunch of titles that were developed that were local brands, you know, outside of the country, people and that kind of thing. So we're all for it.
So Atin, just a follow-up question after hearing a lot of buffet offerings which seem to be really taking off. Do you have any plans for a buffet offering yourself? I'd love to play all your PSP, PS3 games for 200 rupees. I really want to play your games for 200 rupees.
As of now, I don't think it's part of our business model yet. But if you look at all the discussion that has happened with what Vishal is pointing at, what Prakash talked about, what Mike is also talking about. I think if we look at the future of this game development industry or the gaming industry as such, there are a lot of Indian paradigm that needs to come out, and the success depends on those Indian innovations. You take a US or a UK model and try doing it, I don't think it's going to happen that way. The second part of it is most probably while we are talking about, and it's pretty interesting, and this is not from the ski side, it's not a ski side, but ski from an outside perspective. If I look into the Indian game development thing, I think we also need to try to define, at least for the development industry, what exactly are we talking about. Because the moment you say game, and since the time I have joined, like a game is defined by Need for Speed, is defined by God of War, is defined by Call of Duty. Those are the marquee titles. But more and more what I am hearing from the panel is it's also about content development, and the biggest opportunity cross-platform that is coming out is content development that's going to be entertaining, going to be interactive. And from there onwards, perhaps even the games that we talk about may change into, let's not call it education, let's not call it game, but something else,
uniquely Indian.
Something uniquely Indian.
Why not? So many things seem to be uniquely Indian anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're talking about density, you go to a kid and say through interactivity, I'll teach you how to learn density. He is not going to touch it. So it's only the parent who will touch it. At the same time, you take a God of War and tell the kid will touch it, but the parent will not allow him to touch it. So we have to find a midway maybe in terms of the content.
You know, you touched upon content and the relevance of content. Um, can't be stressed enough. I think all of what we have today as content is not yet addressing the social and the cultural context of India. You've made a start, but there is still a long way to go. If you look at the movie business in India, if you look at the television business, you look at the music business, it's totally dominated by Indian content. So my view on this is that if there's going to be a large gaming industry in India, there's no reason why it will not be dominated by Indian content, because all the other entertainment mediums have Indian content which is predominant. And I think there's a lot of Indianization of games that can happen. For example, in TV, we are already seeing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire being packaged in a uniquely Indian way with Amitabh Bachchan, and Big Brother has become Big Boss in its own way, where we have marriages inside and so on. I see that a lot of opportunity there, and I think when you look at what Nitish is saying of phones, Android phones with decent screen sizes becoming, going at a price point of 4,000 rupees. And when you think of, the rural areas in India where there's no power for a lot of time, there's a lot of opportunity for the mobile and time pass on the mobile, as they say. And this, I think.
Yes, if I look at my portfolio also, like even till May, there are a sequence of another 3-4 games coming out. We are already in talks about what can be next year's portfolio. The only challenge is to straddle how do we play the PS2 strategy in the Indian market. But what we are now seeing is a lot of strong IP owners are also showing interest, including people from the film industry. They have not started but showing interest. So it gives us the confidence. The second thing is the moment that technologically as well as means whether it is animation, whether it is programming, or whether it is storytelling, the game developers come to a level where, like the Street Cricket we are launching is simultaneously getting launched in South Africa, Middle East. Australia has shown interest, UK has shown interest. So if they are taking it, they are very finicky game like a sales company. They have no intention of making like ski in India successful by doing a global launch. So that showcases that we can make it. And once that confidence comes in, I think you will see that parallel process. Yes, we will always, for the Indian content, we will keep partnering different developers. But if I am partnering 3, there will be a time when there are 6 or 7 games which are coming in and becoming successful, able to recover 50% of the costs out of India and another 50% of the cost out of the world, and then making profit of a good 20-30%.
So in terms of the platforms that you have 3 platforms out there. How do you, when you started, you felt that it was a good idea to leverage the PS2 and the fact that it was a device which was having its price at what it was, and the pre-existing grey market imports that were already, there was probably when you guys started, there were already about 1 or 2 lakh installed base that was already there. Today, you have probably 5-6 lakhs, maybe 7 lakhs PS2s in India. How do you see those guys continuing to use those consoles, or are they beginning to look at upgrading? Are they looking at continuing to buy games? What's the attach rate like? What's the trending line there?
No, in terms of the yes, there is like the people who have earlier gone into a PS2, they are definitely looking at upgrades. The new gamers have always started looking at an upgrade. But I think in terms of the marketing strategy, this is where we have also been a bit restricted, or like have not seen the success. That yes, PS2 new gamers are still from families with a house